You know, it's a funny thing about politics. You can watch a president's approval rating hold steady for what feels like forever, and then, boom, it just cracks. And you're left wondering, wait, what just happened? Well, what if it's not one big thing, but something different? Let's get into it.
So this is the big question we're going to try and unpack here. Why does that floor of support, which seems so solid, suddenly just give way? It's a real political puzzle, because a lot of the time there's no single event, no smoking gun you can point to and say, that's it, that's what did it.
And the answer, really, is that it's not about one event. It's about the entire ground shifting underneath the president's feet. Think about it. What voters care about today might not be what they care about tomorrow. And when that list of priorities changes, everything changes with it.
Okay, so let's look at this sudden fracture. We're talking about a move from a situation that looked pretty stable, pretty resilient, to a sudden, steep drop.
And this isn't just a feeling, we've got the numbers to prove it. In just one quarter, you're seeing a net approval drop of 8 points. Now that's a big deal. That's the kind of number that sets off alarm bells in any White House. But honestly, that's just the start.
Because look at this. Among independent voters, the folks in the middle who decide elections, the drop is a massive 15 points. This tells you something major is going on. It's not just partisan bickering. It's a real crisis of confidence. So what's behind it?
Well, the first force is one we can all understand. It's all about our wallets. This is that moment when people stop thinking about the economy as some big abstract thing like the stock market and start thinking about the cold, hard math they're doing at home every single month.
And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? The big, broad question, is the economy growing, gets replaced by a much more personal one. Am I okay? Do I feel safer financially than I did last year? And that is a much, much harder question for any politician to answer.
And those kitchen table realities are exactly what you see here. We're talking about the price of groceries and gas going up, worrying about rent or the mortgage, the real cost of having credit card debt. Even if your wages went up a bit, it feels like prices just jumped to a whole new level and stayed there. That feeling of running in place, it's politically explosive.
All right, the second force is a bit less about money and more about a feeling. Let's call it institutional anxiety. It's that uneasy sense you get when it feels like the government is less about keeping things stable and more about, well, forcing its will on people.
And here's the key thing to get. We're not necessarily talking about illegal stuff. These can be actions that are perfectly legal. But for voters who are just desperate for things to feel normal again, it can all add up to a feeling of imbalance. Like the source says, it feels like there's too much heat, not enough light.
So, what triggers this feeling? Well, it could be seeing aggressive visuals during protests, hearing really harsh language used against opponents, or seeing public institutions treated like personal property. Actions that start to feel less like a president managing the country and more like a king issuing decrees. It's all about perception, and that perception can be powerful.
Now for our third force. This one is like pouring gasoline on the fire. It's the reality of a government shutdown. This is when all that abstract frustration you feel about politics suddenly becomes a very real, very annoying part of your daily life.
And a shutdown forces voters to ask this absolutely brutal question. It cuts through everything else. It doesn't matter what your policies are or what you believe in. If you can't even manage to keep the government open, why on earth should anyone trust you with the big stuff? It's a fundamental test of competence, and failing it is deadly.
And the bite of a shutdown is real. This isn't just some news story from DC. No, this is your passport getting stuck in limbo before a trip, your small business loan getting delayed, your local national park being closed, or your neighbor, a federal worker, not getting paid. It makes the dysfunction personal.
So what happens when you throw all three of these forces into a blender? You end up with a political power vacuum. It's this really unstable, fascinating moment where voters are pretty clear they're not happy with the person in charge, but they're not sold on the alternative either.
And that leads to this classic voter's dilemma. On one hand, you have the incumbent, who's taking heat for being too heavy-handed and for failing on those kitchen table economic issues. But then you look at the other side, the opposition, and they're getting criticized for being out of touch or just putting on a show. So voters are basically shouting, "We don't want this," without being able to say, "We want that instead."
The result of all this? Total unpredictability. That crucial middle ground we talked about becomes this low-confidence, volatile group. These are people who might not decide who to vote for until the very last second, or they might split their ticket, voting for different parties for different offices. Or maybe they just get fed up and stay home.
For politicians, it's an absolute minefield.
So, what can we, as citizens, take away from all this? Well, we actually have the power to change the conversation. It means rewarding the politicians who actually talk about the real costs you're facing. It means punishing the political theater of shutdown threats, no matter which party is doing it. And it means demanding a government that's firm and fair, not just dramatic.
And all of this leaves us with one final big question to think about. In an age that's so full of drama and constantly shifting priorities, maybe the real winner will be the side that can just master the art of being good at the job. Who is going to figure out how to deliver some good old-fashioned, boring competence? The answer to that question might just decide everything.